gave me the package as he sat down on my bed, and I looked through the papers with trembling hands. The first was a newspaper clipping saying my parents were politicians who had been sentenced to prison for 25 years for stealing state funds.
I worked at your parents' house. When they were arrested, you were going to be sent to an orphanage, and I just really wanted a kid, so I adopted you, Marianne. I kept the truth from you because I thought it would only make you upset. I'm sorry if I haven't been the best dad.
I jumped forward and hugged him, tears pouring down my face. No, you're the most amazing dad anyone could possibly have. I just wanted to know who they were. But it's not because I've ever been unhappy with you as my father. Not ever. Dad hugged me back.
If you ever want to see them, I'll arrange a visit, okay? It won't bother me at all. I know you're my daughter. By the way, that boy just left if you want to talk to him.
I ran out the door after Vincent, who was walking down to the gate. Why did you do that? Your stupid challenge was over, right? Why did you make an effort to find my parents?
Marianne, it did start off as a stupid challenge, and I wasn't planning on falling for you. But I did, almost instantly. What I feel for you is real and true. I wouldn't have made all that effort if I didn't love you. You're the most special girl I've ever met, and you make me want to be a better person. I'm so sorry for hurting you. Please forgive me, will you?
I looked into his earnest eyes and slowly smiled. I'd rather go down with the Titanic, but I stepped closer and pulled him in for a kiss.
This is the story of how me being gifted completely ruined my life. It started at age 1, when I taught myself how to read. My dad was so proud of my abilities that he invited a local newspaper reporter to our house. They made me read a passage of James Joyce's Ulysses, which is quite a difficult book to read. I ended up on the front page of our town's newspaper, me, a baby in diapers, trying to hold up a 700-page book. Ever since then, I've been praised for my extraordinary achievements. Whether it's straight A's in school or dividing 8-digit numbers in my head, everyone was in awe of me, and my classmates referred to me as the Wonder Kid. One of them even asked me if other kids seemed like idiots to me, to which I responded, no, of course not. Everyone is smart in their own way. But in my head I thought, actually most people do seem kinda dumb and weird to me. For example, in 3rd grade, my annoying classmate Yolanda constantly pretended to have some new injury. She claimed she had a condition that made her bones brittle, and whenever she fell, she'd be in incredible pain. But really, she just wanted attention and to be carried around by the boys in our class. Well, one day, a boy came crying into school. Turns out his grandma died the day before. Everyone felt bad for him except Yolanda. She had to be the center of attention again, so she made up a story about how her grandma had also recently died, but in a much worse way, namely a brutal car accident. Suddenly, all attention was on her again, and I had enough. I called her out on being a dumb and annoying liar. Unsurprisingly, she didn't take it well. She screamed back at me saying, I hope your family dies in a car accident too. I have to admit that she was a good actor, because all the other kids took her side. They didn't see that Yolanda was nothing but a dumb little attention seeker. Unfortunately, this incident isolated me even further from my peers, because now everyone thought I was cruel and heartless. You see, I really wanted to have friends, but it was impossible because I had no shared interests with my classmates. The girls only gossiped about celebrities, and the boys only cared about sports. I was the only one who was into science and math. I was a loner and turned more and more into a target. Not so much because I was smarter, but because I was both smarter and prettier than the other girls. It was too much. When on Valentine's Day, I was the only girl that got a love letter from an anonymous boy. All the other girls were super envious, especially Yolanda. The day after I got the love letter, she came to school wearing makeup and tried to win over the most handsome boy in our class. I cringed so hard seeing her so desperately craving the validation of a guy. But here comes the banger. The boy she approached told her that he didn't like her and that he was actually into me. It turned out that he had been the one who'd sent me the love letter. He rejected her in front of the whole class. And while the boys started laughing at Yolanda for having been rejected, she started crying. I felt so bad for her. I never wanted to be the special girl or stand out. I wish the boy had never sent me a love letter at all. And you can imagine how after this incident, the girls in my class only hated me more. At the same time, school was too easy for me. I was constantly bored in class and developed all kinds of behavioral issues, like becoming a smartass who always corrected her teachers if they said something wrong. Sometimes I even embarrassed them by calling them incompetent, suggesting they should find a new job. One time, for example, we were supposed to learn how to take care of a human baby by taking care of an egg. We all got an egg that had a face drawn onto it, and that was signed with a pen by our teacher. We were supposed to protect it for a week to prove we could take care of a human baby. To me, this experiment was perfectly ridiculous and stupid. Obviously, taking care of an egg has nothing to do with taking care of a real human baby. All you have to do is put that egg back into a refrigerator to keep it safe. So I thought it was funny to buy another egg, paint a face on it, stab a pen into it, put it on the teacher's desk with a sign next to it saying infanticide. Paint a face on it, stab a pen into it, put it on the teacher's desk with a sign next to it saying infanticide. Now, we were only 5th graders, so our teacher immediately knew that this was my work, because none of my classmates even knew what the word infanticide meant. So she turned to me and said, "This will go on your permanent record." I responded that there was no permanent record, and that it was only a made-up myth to scare kids. I told her as soon as I left primary school, no one would know about what I'd done. She completely lost it, but to me it was amusing, a welcome change to the usual boredom I experienced in everyday school life. However, worse than being hated by my teachers and ostracized by my classmates was that I've never learned how to focus for long periods of time because I understood everything within seconds. Unlike my classmates, I never had to sit down for several hours to understand something. From primary school right up to college, I got an A+ in every math exam I ever took without having to study for it. In 9th grade, I even got into the top 10 in the Math Olympiad in the U.S. To celebrate, my parents threw me a party and invited all my family over. I was the whole family's pride, and they'd talk about me someday making some big scientific breakthrough or becoming the CEO of an international conglomerate. Of course, it made me feel very special. But looking back, I wish I hadn't been praised for being born a prodigy, but instead been encouraged to figure out what my interests are, and then to become an expert in that field from a young age on, while also developing a good work ethic. Because right after college, I got a great job in engineering, a 6-figure starting salary. I knew that if I worked hard for 1 or 2 years, I could even get a promotion and become a manager. But I didn't have the discipline. It's been 5 years now, and I'm still stuck in the same job as before. I finished my work normally within 1 or 2 hours because it's so easy, and then play video games on my PC. I was able to convince my boss to get me my own private office by claiming I was hypersensitive to the noise of my colleagues, and that I could focus better if I had my own private room. But actually, I just wanted to play video games without having to worry about being caught. I'm not happy, though. My whole family has high expectations for me, and I know I have the potential to exceed in life, but I'm just a lazy bum. So in the eyes of my family, I will always be an underachiever, which is frustrating. However, one big advantage of being known for being really smart is that some boys are really into it. When they hear I was once a child prodigy, they immediately think about the amazing children we could have together. And even though it's kind of creepy to be seen as some sort of DNA carrier by other people, I don't really care. When I go to a bar and talk to a handsome guy, I can easily impress him with some math trick, like multiplying 2 8-digit numbers in my head. I know it's a bit cringy, but I only do what works, and trust me, there are many guys who go crazy after genius women. And this brings me to my last topic, dating. All the guys I've dated in my life have been significantly less intelligent than me. One guy I dated in college even thought that the whole world was North America, and even though he was stunningly handsome, I couldn't listen to the stupid things he kept saying. And so one time, I made up a story and told him I recently had an operation on both my ears, and therefore couldn't hear anything at all. Finally, he actually stopped talking. A couple weeks later, though, he went through my phone and read my chat with my friend who wrote, "Are you still dating the dumb hot guy who looks like Harry Styles?" I responded, "Yeah, and I love his hair so much." Well, he was really offended by being called dumb. I told him I loved him, but the next day he shaved off his hair in an, I have to say, unsuccessful attempt to look unattractive. Then he asked, grinning, "You still love me now that I'm bald and ugly?" "You still love me now that I'm bald and ugly?" It was almost cute how dumb he was, but only almost. You see, you can date someone and still feel lonely. And that's the worst part about being highly intelligent. It doesn't matter that there are 7 billion other people on the planet if only a handful are like you. A handful of people that you'll probably never meet in person. I have so many thoughts and ideas on my mind, but nobody to share them with. I have an almost perfect memory, but it always makes me dwell on the past and all the opportunities that I've wasted by being lazy. I guess there are 2 sides to everything. Positive and negative, light and darkness. It's nice having a high IQ and being able to learn quickly, master multiple disciplines with ease, to see the world in a richer way than most people could ever dream of. But you'll also be lonely and misunderstood most of your life. Sometimes I wish I was born dumb, especially on family gatherings. I'm sick of hearing the same old questions again.
Have you already gotten a promotion?
Or,
why don't you raise capital and build your own startup? You have the talent.
yuck! Just let me be an underachiever, please, because I'm not very good at handling pressure.
I'm Sophia, and when I was a kid, me and my family always took trips to the beach. I can still remember how much I loved building sand castles and playing with those cute little crabs. However, one day, I suddenly felt dizzy and noticed that I was completely covered in rashes and hives. I got scared and ran to my mom to tell her that something was wrong. However, my throat was so swollen that I couldn't even speak. My parents saw that I was suffocating and rushed me to the hospital. Luckily, the doctors were able to save my life. But a few hours later, I got diagnosed with solar urticaria, or sun allergy. It means that whenever UV light rays hit my skin, I get rashes that burn like fire. To make things worse, my sun allergy is so extreme that I can't leave the house unless it's nighttime, or unless I'm wearing a big sweatshirt that covers all of my skin. You can imagine how my whole life changed in an instant. The worst thing was going to school, because all my classmates could play on the schoolyard while I had to stay inside my classroom with the curtains closed. I felt so lonely, and I couldn't even go to the cafeteria to eat with my classmates because it had such big windows and no curtains. Suddenly, I was a complete loner without friends. I guess that's why I hated school, but life at home wasn't perfect either. I had to spend a lot of time with my evil brother. We hated each other. We hated each other, and he always told me that my sun allergy was ruining our family because we couldn't go camping or go to the beach anymore. I also had nightmares where I tried to run away from the sun, but it would follow me into our basement. Once the sun rays hit me, rashes would form on my arms with blue slime coming out of them, and then I would slowly melt like a snowman on a beach. But most of the time I spent laying in bed crying and wondering if any guy would ever be willing to date a misfit like me. I was about to give up on life, but then my brother had his 13th birthday. My parents asked him if he had any wishes, and he said his only wish was to go back to the beach. My parents got mad at him and told him to be considerate of my sun allergy and to stop talking about the beach. But he started crying, pointed at me, and said I was an evil vampire that was scared of the sun and tried to suck the blood out of our family. I remember feeling so terrible afterwards that I went to my mom and asked if she could bring me to a foster home because I didn't want to be a burden to our family anymore. Luckily, I have the greatest mom in the world, and she said that she would never, ever leave me because she just loves me too much. I guess that's exactly what I needed to hear, because the next day, I decided once and for all to stop being a victim of my sun allergy and to finally take control of my life again. I joined an indoor hockey team to make new friends. I bought a telescope and took my family out to the beach and watched the stars at night. And I stopped thinking of my sun allergy as something bad that happened to me. And instead, I started to think of it as something good that happened for me and that made me become a stronger person. Now I'm in college and people here are much more understanding. Some even think it's cool that I have a sun allergy. And there was one cute guy who approached me and said he always wanted to date a good-looking vampire like me. And I've also decided that if I should ever get married, that it will be during a solar eclipse, because that would be so romantic. I guess it sounds crazy, but at this point in my life, I'm truly grateful for my sun allergy. It taught me that the events in our lives don't control us, but that it's all about how we react to those events. The first 2 years after I developed my sun allergy, I couldn't stop pitying myself, and I spent every night crying myself to sleep and wondering why life was so unfair to me. However, now I've realized that complaining about things you can't control doesn't make sense. It's a waste of time and energy. Instead, I try to only focus on those things that I do have control over, like studying for school or having a good time with my family, playing board games and making jokes. I just want to thank you for listening to my story. I hope you learned something